Haru and oh. The scream tore from my throat before thought could catch up. My baby, my 3-month-old son, slid across the wet changing mat toward the gap in the balcony railing, his tiny body impossibly small against the night sky. Time fractured. Rain hammered the concrete. Thunder rolled overhead like God's warning coming too late. I lunged. My hands grasped air. Then something massive moved in my peripheral vision, a shadow dropping from above with brutal precision. An arm shot past my face, one hand catching Haru mid-slide while the other locked around my waist and yanked me back from the railing's edge. We collided. My back hit a solid chest. The stranger's grip was iron, his breath hot against my ear as we both froze, suspended in the aftermath of almost. Haru didn't cry. That registered first, before the stranger's scent, cedar and smoke, before the way his fingers dug into my hip like he'd never let go. My baby, who screamed through every diaper change, every bath, every moment I failed to be enough, went silent in this stranger's arms. You, I started, voice shaking. Don't move. The command was rough, edged with something I couldn't name. He shifted, bringing Haru closer to his chest, and I felt the precise control in every muscle as he checked the baby for injuries. His other hand stayed locked on my waist. I twisted to see him. Sharp features. Dark eyes that reflected the city lights like black glass. Rain plastered his hair to his forehead, and he looked at Haru with an intensity that made my chest tight. Is he hurt? I managed. No. The word came out clipped. He ran his thumb over Haru's tiny fist, then his cheek, movements gentle despite the tension radiating from his frame. You were changing him here? In this weather? Shame hit hot and acidic. He has a rash. The humidity inside makes it worse. I thought. You thought wrong. He finally looked at me, and I understood what prey felt like. You could have killed him. The truth of it crushed the air from my lungs. I reached for Haru. Give him back. His grip tightened reflexively. For 3 heartbeats, we stood locked in a silent struggle, this stranger holding my baby while rain soaked us both. Then his jaw worked, and he carefully, so carefully it made my throat ache, transferred Haru to my arms. But he didn't step back, didn't let go of my waist. You're shaking, he said. Of course I'm shaking. The words stuck. I pressed my face to Haru's damp hair, breathing in his scent, reassuring myself he was real and whole and alive. Before I tell you what happened next, subscribe to Obsessed Hearts, and tell me where you're watching from. Sit. The stranger guided me toward the apartment door, still holding my waist like I might collapse. Maybe I would. My legs felt distant and unreliable. Inside, the lights were too bright. Haru squirmed against me, starting to fuss, and my hands shook too hard to hold him steady. Here. The stranger took him again before I could protest. Held him with the confidence of someone who'd done this before, supporting his head, keeping him secure against his chest. Haru's fussing stopped instantly. I sank onto the couch, watching this man, this stranger who'd appeared from nowhere, calm my baby with nothing but proximity and touch. Who are you? I whispered. Kale. He rocked Haru with subtle movements, his focus entirely on the baby's face. Upstairs, neighbor. I heard you scream. Upstairs. That explained the descent from above, the way he'd vaulted the balcony gap like it was nothing. But it didn't explain the way he held Haru. The way his expression softened when Haru grabbed his finger. The way he was looking at my son like he'd found something precious he didn't know he'd lost. Thank you, I said, because what else could I say? You saved my baby's life, and now I can't breathe properly, and I don't know if it's fear or something infinitely more dangerous. Kale's eyes flicked to me. Your name? Run. Run. He tested it, then returned his attention to Haru. How old? 3 months. My voice cracked. I'm doing this alone. I didn't mean to be reckless. I'm just so tired, and he cries so much, and I thought. Don't. The word was sharp enough to silence me. Kale shifted, bringing Haru closer to his face, and I watched in confusion as he inhaled slowly, eyes closing for a fraction of a second. When they opened, something in his expression had shifted. Intensified. What are you doing? I asked. Checking. But he didn't elaborate. He studied Haru's face like he was memorizing it, then finally, reluctantly, handed him back. Our fingers brushed during the transfer. His hands were warm despite the rain, calloused but gentle. He held eye contact for 3 beats too long, and I saw it then, the war happening behind that controlled exterior. Lock your balcony, he said, stepping back. I'll check the railing tomorrow. Make sure it's secure. You don't have to. I do. Final. Absolute. He moved toward the door, then paused with his hand on the frame. What happened tonight doesn't happen again. Understood. It should have sounded paternal or condescending. Instead, it sounded like a promise. Like a threat. Understood, I whispered. He left without another word, and I sat alone in my too bright apartment with my baby in my arms and the stranger's scent still clinging to my clothes. Haru started crying again. I didn't sleep. How could I? Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Haru sliding. Saw the gap in the railing. Felt the stomach-dropping terror of knowing I was too slow, too far, too inadequate to save him. And then I saw Kale, appearing like divine intervention wrapped in leather and rain, moving with a precision that suggested violence redirected toward protection. At 4 a.m., I gave up on sleep entirely. Made coffee. Stood at the window watching the city lights blur through the rain. Footsteps echoed overhead. I looked up at the ceiling, tracking the sound. Pacing. Back and forth, steady as a metronome. The rhythm of someone who couldn't settle, couldn't stop moving, couldn't. The footsteps paused directly above Haru's nursery. My coffee cup trembled in my hand. I waited. Listened. Counted my heartbeats in the silence. The pacing resumed. Living room. Kitchen. Back to the nursery. Over and over until dawn broke gray and tired over Lagos. The knock came at 7. I'd been awake for 26 hours straight. Haru was finally asleep in his crib. I just closed my eyes when 3 sharp raps shattered the fragile quiet. I opened the door to find Kale standing in the hallway with a toolbox and an expression that suggested he'd never heard of social conventions like calling first or reasonable morning hours. "The railing," he said by way of greeting, and pushed past me into the apartment. I wait, but he was already on the balcony, crouching beside the damaged section, running his hands over the metal with clinical focus. He'd changed from last night's rain-soaked clothes into dark jeans and a fitted t-shirt that did nothing to hide the muscle underneath. I stood in the doorway, caught between gratitude and something that tasted like violation. "You can't just come in here without permission," I said. "I can if your railing's broken." He didn't look up. Pulled a wrench from the toolbox and started working with efficient, practiced movements. "Landlord should have fixed this months ago. It's a lawsuit waiting to happen." "I know, but nothing." He paused, eyes cutting to me. "You have a baby. Safety isn't negotiable." The certainty in his voice made argument impossible. I wrapped my arms around myself, suddenly aware of my unwashed hair, my stained shirt, the chaos of my life on full display. Kale returned to his work. The muscles in his forearms flexed with each turn of the wrench. His hands were sure and capable, the kind of hands that built things and fixed things, and Haru's cry cut through the apartment like a knife. Kale's hands stopped moving. I rushed to the nursery, but when I returned with my screaming baby, Kale was standing in the living room, toolbox abandoned, jaw tight with visible tension. "Sorry," I said over Haru's wails. "He's been fussy all night. I don't know what." "Give him here." "What?" "Your hands are shaking." Kale stepped closer, reaching for Haru. "You're exhausted. Give him here while I finish the railing." I should have said no. Should have held my ground, maintained boundaries, protected the fragile fortress of independence I'd built around my son and myself. Instead, I handed Haru over and watched my baby stop crying the instant Kale's arms closed around him. Why does he do that? Kale didn't answer immediately. He stood in my living room with my 3-month-old son pressed against his chest, one large hand cradling Haru's head while the other supported his tiny body. Haru had gone completely still, his fussing evaporated like it had never existed. "Do what?" Kale's voice was low, careful not to disturb the quiet. "Stop crying for you." I gestured helplessly. "He never. I've tried everything. Rocking, singing, different holds. But you just pick him up and he's calm." Kale's jaw tightened. "Maybe he senses you're stressed. So he senses I'm a terrible parent." I didn't say that. His eyes met mine, sharp and direct. "But babies are honest. They feel what you feel." The words hit like an accusation. I turned away, moving toward the kitchen because standing still meant facing the truth of my inadequacy. Behind me, I heard Kale's quiet footsteps returning to the balcony. For 20 minutes, I made toast I wouldn't eat and listened to the rhythmic sound of metal on metal. Kale worked with steady precision, his movements economical and sure. Haru remained silent in whatever position Kale had arranged him. When Kale finally returned inside, he'd somehow secured Haru in the crook of one arm while keeping his other hand free for tools. "You're ambidextrous," I observed. "Necessary." He set the toolbox down but didn't hand Haru back. "Railings reinforced. It'll hold now, but you need to call your landlord about a full replacement." "I will. Thank you." I reached for Haru. Kale's arm tightened fractionally before he caught himself and transferred the baby over. Our fingers overlapped during the handoff, his warm and rough against mine. He held the contact a beat longer than necessary, eyes dropping to where our hands met. Then he stepped back. "I'll check on you tomorrow," he said. "You don't need to do that." "I do." He picked up his toolbox, heading for the door. Paused with his hand on the frame. "Get some sleep, Rin. You look like you're about to collapse." The door closed behind him before I could respond. Haru started crying again. Kale came back the next day. And the day after that. Each time with a different excuse. Checking the railing, noticing a loose hinge on my door, bringing groceries he claimed were extra from his own shopping. Each time arriving precisely when Haru's crying reached its peak, like he could hear it through the ceiling and couldn't resist intervening. By the fourth day, I stopped pretending surprise when his knock came. "The sink's dripping," he announced, pushing past me with a new toolbox. "I didn't tell you about the sink. I heard it through the floor." He was already under the kitchen counter, inspecting pipes. "You're wasting water." "I'll fix it." I stood there holding Haru, who was working himself up to a full scream, and watched this man dismantle my plumbing without invitation or permission. "Kale. Why are you really here?" His hand stilled. For 3 heartbeats, silence hung thick between us. Then he slid out from under the sink and stood, wiping his hands on his jeans. "You need help," he said simply. "That's not an answer." His eyes locked on mine, and I saw something flicker behind that controlled exterior. Something raw and unguarded that disappeared before I could name it. Haru's cry pierced the tension. "Give him here," Kale said. "No." The word came out sharper than intended. "You can't just keep taking him. He's my son. I need to learn how to." "You're holding him wrong." Kale stepped closer, moving into my space with predatory ease. "His neck needs more support. Your arm is too tense. He can feel it. Then tell me how to fix it." Something shifted in Kale's expression. "Fine. Turn around." "What?" "Turn around. I'll show you." I hesitated, then obeyed. Felt Kale move behind me, his presence solid and overwhelming. His hands settled on my shoulders, adjusting my posture. "Relax here." His fingers pressed gently. "You're carrying all your stress in your shoulders. He feels that. I can't just breathe." His breath was warm against my ear. "In. Hold. Out." I followed the instruction. Felt some of the tension leave my body. "Better." Kale's hands slid down my arms, adjusting how I held Haru. His chest pressed against my back as he leaned in, repositioning my grip. "Support his head here. Let his body rest against your chest. Your heartbeat will calm him." His hands covered mine, guiding the adjustment. Haru shifted, then settled, his crying diminishing to soft whimpers. "See." Kale's voice was low, intimate. "You just needed the right angle." I was acutely aware of everywhere we touched. His chest against my back, his hands over mine, his breath on my neck. The apartment felt too small, too warm. "Kale." My voice came out rough. "What are you doing?" His hands stilled on mine. "Teaching you." "It doesn't feel like teaching." Silence stretched between us, loaded with unspoken things. Then Kale stepped back, breaking contact, and the sudden absence of his warmth felt like loss. "I should go," he said. But he didn't move. Haru had gone completely quiet, nestled against my chest in the position Kale had arranged. For the first time in days, my baby was peaceful in my arms. I turned to face Kale. Found him staring at Haru with an expression I couldn't decode. Hunger and grief and something deeper, something almost desperate. "Why do you keep coming back?" I asked quietly. "Because you need. Don't give me that again." I cut him off. "You barely know me. You don't owe me anything." "So why?" Kale's jaw worked. His hands flexed at his sides, and I watched him fight some internal war I couldn't see. "The scent," he finally said. "What?" "When I held him that first night." "His scent." Kale's eyes met mine, and the raw vulnerability in them made my breath catch. It reminded me of someone I lost. The confession hung in the air between us. "Who?" I whispered. But Kale shook his head. "It doesn't matter. He stopped. Started again. I can't stay away. I've tried." The honesty in those words terrified me more than his presence ever had. "You should try harder," I said, but there was no conviction in it. Kale smiled, sharp and sad. "Yeah, I should." He left without fixing the sink. That night, I woke to voices. 2:17 a.m. Haru was crying, but there was something else, a low murmur I recognized even through the walls. I picked up Haru and moved to the door, pressing my ear against it. Kale's voice drifted from the hallway, calm and even. He was talking to someone on the phone, his tone professional and distant. I caught fragments. Not coming back. I told you, I'm done with that life. No, I don't care about the money. Footsteps. A door closing. Silence. I stood in my dark apartment holding my crying baby and tried to ignore the questions multiplying in my mind. Who was Cale before he became my neighbor? What life was he running from? Why did it matter to me? Would you forgive someone who mistook your pain for love? Comment below. The pattern continued. Cale appeared every day, sometimes twice. He fixed things I didn't know were broken. Brought groceries I hadn't asked for. Stayed longer each time, his presence becoming as familiar as the furniture. A week passed. Then two. I stopped fighting it. One evening, I found him in my kitchen making dinner while I bathed Haru. He moved through my space with easy confidence, like he'd always belonged there. You didn't ask, I said from the doorway. You didn't eat lunch. He didn't look up from the vegetables he was chopping. Or breakfast. When's the last time you had a real meal? I eat. Toast isn't a meal. He pointed the knife at me. Sit. This'll be ready in 10 minutes. I should have argued. Should have reclaimed my space, my autonomy, my life. Instead, I sat at my own kitchen table and watched this man cook for me. Where did you learn to do that? I asked. Do what? Everything. Fix things. Cook. Handle babies like you've done it before. Cale's knife stilled on the cutting board. I had a brother. Half-brother, technically. Raised him from when he was 6 months old. Past tense. The grief in his voice was ocean deep. What happened? I asked softly. He died. Cale resumed chopping, movements mechanical. 3 years ago. Car accident. He was 17. The pieces clicked into place. The way Cale held Haru, the desperate intensity in his eyes, the sent comment that made sense now. I'm sorry, I whispered. Don't be. Cale moved to the stove, his back to me. It was a long time ago. 3 years wasn't long at all. Is that why you can't stay away? I asked. Because Haru reminds you of him? Cale's shoulders tensed. For a long moment, he didn't answer. Then he turned, eyes finding mine across the small kitchen. At first, he admitted. That night on the balcony, when I caught him, yeah. The resemblance was strong. Same scent profile. Same features. And now, Cale crossed the kitchen, stopping directly in front of me. Close enough that I had to tilt my head back to maintain eye contact. Now it's not about him anymore. His voice was rough, honest. Now I come back because I can't stop thinking about you. The way you look at Haru like he's your entire world. The way you push yourself past exhaustion trying to be enough. The way you don't ask for help even when you're drowning. My breath caught. Cale, I know it's wrong. He didn't touch me, but I felt the restraint in every line of his body. I know I should leave you alone, but I can't, and I'm not sorry about it. The kitchen felt airless. Haru made soft noises from his bouncer in the corner, the only sound in the charged silence. You don't know me, I managed. I know you take your coffee black at 6 a.m. Cale's eyes never left mine. I know you sing off-key when you think no one's listening. I know you're terrified of failing him, so you refuse to sleep even though you're running on empty. I know you cry in the shower where he can't hear you. Heat flooded my face. The walls are that thin? Thin enough. He stepped back, breaking the intensity. Dinner's almost ready. Go sit down. I obeyed on autopilot, my mind spinning with the revelation that this man had been listening to my life unfold through the ceiling, collecting pieces of me I never meant to share. It should have felt invasive. Creepy. Instead, it felt like being seen for the first time in months. Cale started staying for dinner. Then staying to help with Haru's nighttime routine. Then staying so late that leaving seemed pointless. You can take the couch, I finally said one night at 1 a.m. He'd been holding Haru for 20 minutes, walking slow circles around my living room, refusing to put him down even though the baby was clearly asleep. I should go home, Cale said, but didn't move. The couch is closer than upstairs. His eyes met mine in the dim light. Is that what you want? The question carried weight beyond the words. I don't know what I want, I admitted. But I know I'm tired of pretending you're not already here. Something shifted in Cale's expression, relief or resignation or both. He carefully transferred Haru to the crib, movements practiced and gentle. Then he returned to the living room where I stood frozen, uncertain what we'd just agreed to. Just sleep, he said quietly. That's all this is. I nodded, retreated to my bedroom, lay awake listening to Cale settle on the couch, the soft sounds of him existing in my space. At 3 a.m., Haru started crying. I dragged myself up, but Cale was already there. I watched from the doorway as he lifted my son, held him close, murmured something too soft to hear. Haru quieted instantly, and Kale stood there in the dark nursery, swaying gently, looking at my baby like he was the most precious thing in the world. Like he'd never let anything hurt him. Like he'd already decided we belonged to him. I should have been afraid of that possessiveness. Should have recognized the danger in letting someone orbit so close to the fragile life I'd built. Instead, I went back to bed and slept soundly for the first time in weeks. You're humming again. I looked up from the dishes to find Kale leaning against the doorframe, Haru asleep on his shoulder. 3 weeks had passed since he'd started staying over. 3 weeks of this strange domestic routine that felt more real than anything I'd built alone. I didn't realize, I said. You do it when you're relaxed. He shifted Haru carefully, his hand cradling the baby's head with practiced ease. It's nice. Better than the silence. I turned back to the sink, hiding the flush creeping up my neck. The silence used to be all I had. And now it feels crowded. I rinsed a plate, set it in the rack. In a good way. Mostly. Kale moved behind me, close enough that I could feel his presence like heat. Mostly. You're intense. I kept my eyes on the dishes. Sometimes I feel like you're watching me even when you're not in the room. I am. No apology in his voice. Upstairs. I hear everything. Your footsteps. Haru's cries. The shower running at 2 a.m. when you can't sleep. The honesty should have unsettled me. Instead, it felt like confirmation of something I'd already known. Does it bother you? He asked. That I listen? I considered lying. Chose truth instead. No. It bothers me that it doesn't bother me. Kale's quiet laugh stirred the hair at my nape. We're a mess, aren't we? Completely. I dried my hands, turned to face him. Found him closer than expected, Haru still sleeping peacefully between us. But I don't want you to stop. His eyes darkened. Careful, Ren. I'm not good at restraint. I've noticed. Have you? He shifted Haru to one arm, reaching out with his free hand to brush a water droplet from my jaw. His thumb lingered, tracing the line of my face with devastating gentleness. Because I've been restraining myself for weeks. If you knew half the things I want. Haru stirred, cutting the moment short. Kale stepped back, jaw tight with visible tension. I should put him down, he said. I watched him walk away, my heart hammering against my ribs. That night, I woke to find my bed empty and the apartment silent. 3:47 a.m. Haru's bassinet stood vacant beside me. Panic flared before logic caught up. Kale was here. He had Haru. I found them on the balcony. Kale stood with his back to me, Haru cradled against his chest, both silhouetted by city lights. He was talking, voice so low I had to strain to hear. Would have been 18 next month, he was saying. Probably would have started university. He wanted to study architecture. Build things that last. A pause. I couldn't protect him. Couldn't stop the drunk driver who ran the red light. But I can protect you. My throat tightened. This was grief, raw and unguarded. Shared with a baby who couldn't understand but somehow made the confession safe. His name was Malik, Kale continued, rocking gently. And he had your eyes. Same shape. Same color. The first time I saw you, I thought, he stopped. Started again. I thought maybe the universe was giving me a second chance. But that's not fair to you, is it? You're not a replacement. You're just yours. I should have retreated. Should have given him this private moment. But I stepped forward, and the floorboard creaked. Kale turned, eyes finding mine in the darkness. No shame. No apology. He was restless, Kale said simply. So were you. I moved closer, stopping beside him. You talked to him about Malik? Sometimes. Kale looked down at Haru's sleeping face. Is that wrong? No. I touched his arm, feeling muscle tense beneath my fingers. It's honest. We stood together in the dark, the three of us, and something shifted. Settled. Like puzzle pieces finding their proper arrangement. I'm scared of this, I admitted quietly. Of what? Of how much I need you. How fast it happened. I kept my hand on his arm, anchoring myself. 3 weeks ago, you were a stranger. Now I can't imagine a day without you in it. That's terrifying. Kale transferred Haru to one arm, then turned to face me fully. His free hand cupped my jaw, tilting my face toward the light. Then be scared, he said. But don't send me away. I don't want to. The admission felt like surrender. That's what terrifies me most. His thumb traced my lower lip, and the touch sent electricity down my spine. Run. Haru made a soft sound, and Kale immediately shifted focus, checking the baby with automatic concern. The moment broke, but the tension remained, live wire between us. We should sleep, I said. Yeah, but neither of us moved. Finally, Kale carried Haru back inside, settling him in the bassinet with careful precision. I climbed back into bed, and Kale stood there in the doorway, silhouetted by hallway light. "Good night," he said. "You could stay." The words escaped before I could stop them. "Here. In the bed. Just stay." Kale went very still. "Run. Just to sleep," I clarified quickly. "I sleep better when I know you're close." For 3 heartbeats, he didn't move. Then he crossed the room, rounding the bed, sliding under the covers beside me. The mattress dipped with his weight. Heat radiated from his body, close but not touching. "This is a bad idea," he murmured. "Probably. I'm going to get used to this." "Good." I turned onto my side, facing him in the darkness. Could just make out his features in the ambient light. "I want you to get used to it." His hand found mine under the covers. Laced our fingers together. "Sleep," he said. I did. Deeply and dreamlessly, with Kale's hand in mine and Haru's soft breathing filling the room. Morning brought awkwardness and coffee. I woke to an empty bed and the smell of breakfast cooking. Found Kale in the kitchen, already showered and dressed, moving through my space like he owned it. "You raided my closet," I observed, noting my shirt stretched across his broader frame. "Mine are upstairs. Didn't want to wake you." He flipped something in a pan without looking at me. "How do you take your eggs?" "However you're making them." He plated food with efficient movements, and we ate in comfortable silence. Haru watched from his bouncer, tracking Kale's movements with focused attention. "I have a work call at 9, Kale said eventually. "But I'll be back this afternoon." "What do you do?" I realized I'd never asked. "For work. Security consulting. Freelance." He sipped coffee. "Design protection systems for corporate clients. Mostly remote work." That explained the odd hours, the way he moved with tactical precision, the hyper-awareness in his posture. "Were you military?" "Private sector. Similar training." He met my eyes. "I don't talk about that part of my life." "Okay." I accepted the boundary. "What do you talk about?" A smile ghosted across his face. "Apparently, I talked to your baby about my dead brother at 3 a.m. The dark humor should have felt wrong. Instead, it felt intimate, like being invited past his walls. "He's a good listener," I said. "Better than most adults." Kale stood, carrying dishes to the sink. "I meant what I said last night. About protecting you both. That's not just words." "I know." He turned, studying me with that intense focus that made my skin prickle. "Do you?" "Because people don't usually let me in this far. They sense something's off." "What's off?" "I'm too much. Too intense." "Too," he gestured vaguely. "I make people uncomfortable." I stood, crossing the small kitchen to stop in front of him. "You make me feel safe." "That's not uncomfortable." His hands flexed at his sides, restraint visible in every line of his body. "You shouldn't trust me this easily." "Probably not." I reached up, touching the side of his face. Felt him lean into the contact involuntarily. "But I do anyway." "Run." His voice was strained. "If I kiss you right now, I won't stop at just kissing." My heart hammered. "Then don't kiss me yet." "Yet." His eyes darkened with promise. "So there's a yet?" "Maybe." I dropped my hand, stepping back. "When I'm sure this isn't just convenience. Or grief. Or, it's not." He caught my wrist, gentle but firm. "I need you to understand that. What I feel isn't about Malik or loneliness or finding someone to fix. It's about you. Specifically and completely you." The certainty in his voice stole my breath. "How can you know that?" I whispered. "It's only been 3 weeks." I knew the first night. He released my wrist but held my gaze. "When I caught Haru and looked at you, terrified and shaking and still trying to take him back because you're too stubborn to admit you need help. I knew then. That's not love. That's obsession." He smiled, sharp and self-aware. "Yeah, probably. But I've never been good at half measures." "Have you ever loved again after loss?" Share your story in the comments. Before I could respond, Haru started crying. The moment broke, and Kale moved automatically to comfort him, leaving me standing in the kitchen processing everything he'd said. Obsession. The word should have been a warning. Instead, it felt like truth. The days blurred together in domestic rhythm. Kale worked from my couch, laptop balanced on his knees while Haru napped nearby. I started showering without locking the bathroom door, knowing Kale would listen for the baby. We cooked together, cleaned together, existed in tandem like we'd been doing this for years instead of weeks. But the tension built. Every accidental touch. Every loaded glance. Every night we climbed into bed together and maintained careful distance. It couldn't last. 2 nights later, I woke to Kale's arm around my waist, his body curved against my back, his breath warm on my neck. He was still asleep, defenses down, holding me like I was precious. I should have moved. Should have maintained the boundary we'd been carefully preserving. Instead, I laced my fingers with his and pressed back into his warmth. Cale stirred. His arm tightened reflexively, then went rigid as consciousness returned. Sorry, he started to pull away. Don't. I held his hand firmly against my stomach. Stay. Run. Please. I turned my head slightly, just enough to see his profile in the darkness. I'm tired of pretending I don't want this. His hand flexed against my stomach. Want what exactly? You. Close. Like this. I took a shaky breath. I know it's fast. I know it's probably stupid. But I trust you and I want. He kissed my shoulder through my shirt, silencing me. The touch was gentle, reverent, nothing like the intensity I'd expected. You have no idea how long I've been waiting to hear that, he murmured against my skin. Then why aren't you? Because once I start, I won't be able to stop. He pressed another kiss to my shoulder. And you need to be sure. Completely sure. Because I meant what I said. I don't do half measures. I turned in his arms, facing him fully. His eyes were dark in the dim light, pupils blown wide with want. I'm sure, I whispered. Are you? His hand came up to cup my face. Because this isn't casual for me. Can't be. If we do this, you're mine. That's how my brain works. Possessive and territorial, and probably unhealthy. Can you handle that? The question hung between us, honest and raw. Try me, I said. Cale's smile was slow and dangerous. Careful what you offer. Then he kissed me, finally properly, with all the restrained hunger of 3 weeks condensed into one moment. His hand tangled in my hair, angling my head for better access. I gasped against his mouth, and he took advantage, deepening the kiss until I forgot how to breathe. We broke apart, both breathing hard. Bed's too small, he muttered against my lips. Don't care. We'll wake Haru. Then be quiet. His laugh was rough and wanting. You're going to destroy me. Good. I pulled him back down, claiming his mouth again, and felt him surrender to the inevitability of us. Outside, dawn was breaking. Inside, we were finally letting ourselves fall. You have a visitor. Cale's voice cut through the morning quiet, sharp with warning. I looked up from feeding Haru to find him standing rigid at the door, blocking someone from view. Who? I asked. Says his name is Dammy. Cale's jaw was tight. Claims he's Haru's father. The bottle slipped from my hand. Formula splattered across the floor, but I barely registered it. For months. For months of silence. And now Dammy appeared like a ghost I'd tried to bury. Let him in, I said quietly. Run. Let him in, Cale. Cale stepped aside, and Dammy walked into my apartment like he owned it. Designer clothes. Expensive cologne. The same careless confidence that had attracted me 2 years ago and destroyed me shortly after. Run. Dammy's smile was practiced. You look tired. What do you want? I kept my voice steady, holding Haru closer. To see my son. His eyes flickered to the baby. You didn't think I'd find out? My mother saw you at the clinic. She told me everything. Cale moved to stand beside me, presence solid and threatening. You weren't interested 4 months ago. And you are. Dammy's smile turned sharp. Let me guess, new boyfriend playing house? That's sweet. But biology doesn't change. That's my child. You signed away your rights, I said. You made it clear you wanted nothing to do with us. I was scared. Young. I made a mistake. Dammy stepped closer. Cale shifted, blocking him. But I'm ready now. Ready to be a father. To give him the life he deserves. The life he deserves? My voice rose. Where were you when I was giving birth alone? When I had no money for formula? When I... Run. Cale's hand found my shoulder, grounding me. Breathe. I forced air into my lungs. Looked at Dammy, really looked. Saw the calculation behind his concern. The way his eyes kept drifting to the expensive baby equipment Cale had bought. This isn't about Haru, I said slowly. This is about your family. They found out, and now you need to save face. Dammy's mask slipped. My father wants to meet his grandson. Is that so wrong? Your father called me a mistake. The old wound still ached. Said I was trying to trap you. Said I'd amount to nothing. He's changed. Get out. I stood, still holding Haru. You have no rights here. Legal or moral. I can fight you on this. Dammy's voice hardened. I have money. Lawyers. You're a single omega with no support system. What judge is going to choose you over a stable 2-parent home? Cale moved before I could process the threat. One moment Dammy was standing near the door. The next, Cale had him pressed against the wall, forearm across his throat. You're going to leave, Cale said quietly. And you're not coming back. Who the hell are you? Dammy choked out. I'm the support system. Kale's voice was deadly calm. I'm the one who's been here. The one who will keep being here. And if you try to take them, I will make your life very difficult. Understand? You're threatening me. I'm promising you. Kale released him, stepping back. Legal threats work both ways. Abandonment, emotional distress, harassment. I have very good lawyers, and unlike you, I'm not afraid to use them. Dammy straightened his shirt, eyes darting between us. This isn't over. Yes, it is. I found my voice. Haru is mine. Only mine. You don't get to show up and play father when it's convenient. He deserves better than that. And he deserves this? Dammy gestured at Kale. Some stranger who's clearly obsessed with you? You think that's healthy? Healthier than you. The words came easier now. At least Kale was here. At least he gives a damn. Dammy's laugh was bitter. You always were naive. Good luck, Rin. You'll need it. The door slammed behind him. Silence crashed down. I stood frozen, Haru clutched against my chest, the reality of what just happened settling like lead in my stomach. He's right. My voice cracked. He has money. Family connections. If he fights for custody, he won't. Kale moved closer, careful not to crowd. That was posturing. His family probably pushed him to visit, but he doesn't actually want the responsibility. He just wanted to assert dominance. You don't know that. I know men like him. Kale's hand found my face, gentle despite the violence still radiating from his frame. All ego, no substance. He'll make noise for a week, then disappear when it requires actual effort. And if he doesn't, then I make good on my promise. His thumb traced my cheekbone. I told you, I protect what's mine. That includes you. Both of you. The possessiveness should have scared me. Instead, it felt like safety. Kale. I leaned into his touch. What you did threatening him, that wasn't. Wasn't what? Legal? Smart. He smiled without humor. Probably not. But I meant every word. Nobody threatens you. Not while I'm breathing. Haru chose that moment to start fussing, breaking the intensity. I tried to comfort him, but my hands were shaking too hard. Kale took him carefully. Sit. I've got him. I sank onto the couch, adrenaline draining, leaving exhaustion in its wake. Watched Kale pace with Haru, movements sure and practiced, until the baby settled. I'm scared, I admitted. I know. Not just of Dammy. Of this. I gestured between us. Of how much I need you. What happens if you leave? If this doesn't work? Kale stopped pacing. Looked at me with devastating certainty. I'm not leaving. You can't know that. Yes, I can. He sat beside me, Haru cradled in one arm, his other reaching for my hand. Run, I told you I don't do half measures. When I commit completely. And I committed to you the night I caught him falling. That was barely a month ago. Time doesn't matter. His fingers laced with mine. Some people know immediately. I knew the second I looked at you. Terrified and brave and too proud to accept help you desperately needed. I knew you were going to change everything. Tears burned behind my eyes. That's not normal. No. His smile was soft. But neither is this. Neither are we. And I'm okay with that. Are you? The question hung between us, waiting for truth. I don't know how to do this, I whispered. How to let someone in completely. I've been alone so long. You're not alone anymore. Kale shifted closer, transferring Haru to my arms so he could cup my face with both hands. You have me. For as long as you want me. What if I want you forever? His breath caught. Then you have me forever. That's insane. Probably. He leaned in, pressing his forehead to mine. But I've never been particularly sane where you're concerned. I closed my eyes, feeling his breath mingle with mine, Haru warm between us. This moment, fragile and perfect and terrifying, felt like standing on a precipice. Okay, I breathed. Okay what? Okay forever. Okay to all of it. Okay to, my voice broke. To letting you stay. Kale kissed me then, soft and claiming and full of promises I was finally ready to believe. When we broke apart, Haru was watching us with wide eyes, like he understood something momentous had shifted. No regrets. Kale murmured against my lips. Ask me in 20 years. His laugh was warm and real. I will. 3 days later, Dammy's lawyer sent paperwork. Kale's lawyer sent better paperwork. Within a week, Dammy withdrew his custody claim in exchange for terminating all parental rights permanently. Told you, Kale said, signing as witness on my documents. All noise. I should have felt relieved. Instead, I felt hollow, the final thread connecting me to my old life severed completely. Hey! Kale pulled me against his chest, reading my mood with uncanny accuracy. This is good news. I know. But now it's real. Official. Just me and Haru. No backup plan. No. You're not alone. His arms tightened. How many times do I have to say it? Until I believe it. Then I'll keep saying it. He pressed a kiss to my temple. You're not alone. You have me. We're a family. All three of us. Understand? Family. The word settled into my chest, warm and terrifying and right. Yeah, I whispered. I understand. A week later, I woke to an empty bed. Again. But this time I knew where to find them. The balcony. Scene of almost tragedy turned into something sacred. Kale stood in pre-dawn light, Haru against his shoulder, both watching the city wake. You're going to spoil him, I said from the doorway. Probably. Kale didn't turn. But he likes the sunrise. Don't you, buddy? Haru made a soft sound, tiny hand clutching Kale's shirt. I moved to stand beside them, and Kale's arm came around my waist automatically, pulling me close. We stood like that, three people who'd found each other in crisis and chosen to stay. I've been thinking, Kale said eventually. Dangerous. His laugh rumbled through his chest. About moving my stuff down here. Officially. My lease is up next month, and I'm here more than upstairs anyway. My heart kicked. That's a big step. I know. He finally looked at me. Too big. I studied his face, the certainty in his eyes, the careful hope, the man who'd vaulted from a balcony to save my baby and stayed to save me. No, I decided. Not too big. Just right. His smile was sunrise bright. Yeah. I leaned into him. But you're helping with night feedings. Deal. He kissed my temple, then Haru's head. Anything else? Don't leave. The words came quiet but fierce. No matter what. Don't leave us. Never. His arm tightened around my waist. I told you, Rin. I don't do half measures. This is forever, if you'll have me. I'll have you. Haru chose that moment to grab both our shirts, making his own claim. We laughed, exhausted and happy and whole. Below us, Legos stirred to life. Above, the sky shifted from black to gold. And on this balcony where everything had almost ended, we stood together and watched our new life begin. I love you, Kale said suddenly. I should have said it before, but I was trying not to overwhelm you. But I do. Completely. Both of you. The confession squeezed my chest. I love you too, even though you're obsessive and intense and probably too much. Especially because of that, he corrected with a grin. Especially because of that, I agreed. Haru gurgled approval, and we stood there, our strange, beautiful family, until the sun was fully risen and the coffee maker beeped from inside. Real life waited. Bills and diapers and all the mundane chaos of existing. But for this moment, we had everything we needed. Each other. This impossible love born from crisis. The knowledge that sometimes the person who saves you is the one who needs saving too. Come on, I said eventually. Coffee's ready. Kale transferred Haru to me, pressing a lingering kiss to my mouth before stepping back. You go. I'll be right there. I paused in the doorway, looking back. Kale stood framed by morning light, and something in his expression made my breath catch. Contentment and grief and love all tangled together. What? I asked. Nothing. He shook his head. Just thank you. For letting me stay. For trusting me with this. Thank you for catching him. My throat tightened. For catching us both. His smile was soft and true. Best thing I ever did. Inside, Haru started fussing for his bottle. Real life called us back. But as I moved into the apartment with Kale following close behind, I realized something fundamental had changed. I'd spent 4 months believing I had to do this alone. That needing help was weakness. That love was something that happened to other people. Kale had proven me wrong on every count. And as he moved past me to start breakfast, humming the same off-key tune I always sang, I understood what forever actually meant. It meant this. Morning coffee and shared smiles and a man who loved my baby like his own. It meant balcony sunrises and midnight feedings and someone who stayed even when things got hard. It meant finally not being alone. Hey, Kale called from the kitchen. Where you're watching from? I laughed. What? The comments thing. You're supposed to tell people where you're watching from. He grinned over his shoulder. Lagos, obviously. But I thought I'd ask. You're ridiculous. You love it. I did. God help me, I really did. Lagos, I said, moving to join him. Home. Kale pulled me close, Haru between us, and pressed a kiss to my forehead. Home, he agreed. And for the first time in longer than I could remember, I believed it. The end.